Okay, I'm at trustee AT&T, I got 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Gainesville Hospital District, July 22nd, 2019. And Ken is going to do our education.
That's great. Most President Heavenly Father, thank you for what you've done for us today. I want you to be with us tonight as we make decisions that affect a lot of people in this county. And Lord, just just what you would like for us to do and everything. And we're asking that you guide us and watch over us. It's in your son's name we ask. Amen. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, community input. We've got a few people that want to speak here. Let's start with, let me remind you, I don't know how long some of you want to speak, but we've got a few here, so if you can kind of keep it to, the few minutes, not a long time, but you say what you need to say. The first one up is Don Wood. Come up here, please, if you would.
I'm Don Wood with CEO of Muskogee Federal Credit Union. And the first thing I want to say is I was a patient at the hospital out here starting Wednesday through Saturday, and I got great service. I want to really thank y'all for everything y'all done in keeping the hospital going, especially since I drove myself to the hospital. I'm not sure I could have made it to Sherman or didn't. But great service, and actually one day nurse, Stephanie Weaver, she went above and beyond, I think, to keep me comfortable when I was out here, and I really appreciate that. But I'm here tonight to discuss the Lake Kiowa property that's on the agenda. I just want to bring a couple of things to your attention. The credit union has been a tenant of the property out in Lake Kiowa since 2010. And we have paid over approximately $250,000 back to the hospital in lease payments. We have attempted to purchase the property twice, once in 2012 and again in 2014. And in both cases, we were the only bidder. In fact, the bid in 2012 of $425,000 is actually higher than the existing bid that you have right now. We actually had to file a claim on our credit union insurance due to water damage because we couldn't get the hospital to, this has been 4 or 5 years ago, we could not get them to taking action as far as repairing the damage, so we went ahead and filed a claim on our insurance. Not to mention the time I actually have trimmed back shrubs out there and mowed the grass because it looks so bad. And again, the hospital would not respond, and I actually did it myself. And the last thing I just want to say is we're not buying this property, or we don't want this property as an investment. We want it to serve the community like Kiowa and all of Muskogee members. We were actually thinking, if we'd gotten the property, of taking the existing site that's vacant right now for credit union use and help better serve our members. Anyway, I appreciate the time and consideration, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
David Sampson.
Mr. Sampson, I'm going to move the podium.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Members of the board, my name is David Sampson. I'm here to speak on the agenda item regarding the proposed Wildcat Creek tax abatement. So our family has owned land here in Cook County and run cattle since 1989. We currently live at 8615 FM 51. And you would be hard pressed, I would say, to find a stronger proponent for private property rights as a landowner and as a rancher. But landowners do not have a right to taxpayer subsidies to develop their properties. I have extensive background in some of the largest tax abatement projects that have ever been completed in Texas. I was president of the Arlington Chamber of Texas of Commerce when we did the tax abatements for General Motors. I chaired the Texas Economic Development Commission for then Governor Bush, and at the national level served as Deputy Secretary of Commerce responsible for economic development throughout the country. I greatly appreciate your fiduciary duty to the taxpayers of Cook County, and you have an extra burden trying to run a hospital district which is under pressure nationally. To truly understand the actual net revenues that this project would bring to the hospital district, you will need to calculate not only the additional revenue that Wildcat would bring once their project completes the abatement period, or the portion that is on the rolls during the abatement period. You will need to also calculate the negative impact on surrounding property values of landowners and homeowners whose property lies outside the proposed enterprise zone but will be impacted. This is a part of the well-established economic principle known as opportunity cost. We've already been advised by our real estate attorney that if we were to put our property on the market today, the proposed wind farm is a disclosable condition, being a factor known by the seller that could negatively impact the value of the property to the prospective purchaser. We would urge you to engage an outside consultant to evaluate the historic property value appreciation trends in Cook County, analyze the negative impact on property values adjacent to wind farms nationally, and then project the true net impacts on Cook County tax revenues. I have provided you with a link to one such study by Clarkson University School of Business, which found that, and I quote, nearby wind facilities significantly reduce property values between 7.73% and 14.87%. So, as an economic development professional, I would say that this request lies far outside of the typical tax abatement request in Texas that is granted, such as for the General Motors assembly plant in Arlington that secured thousands of jobs and close to $1 billion in additional capital investment that was put on the tax roll. And as you conduct your due diligence on the abatement request, my neighbors and I, there are some 30 neighbors that are landowners that are part of the group that I am conveying their views tonight, many of whom are here. We would urge you to consider all of these factors in your cost-benefit analysis and economic impact analysis on this tax abatement request. And I'm happy at any point to answer any specific questions you have about the project or further reasons why we believe it is not a good candidate for a tax abatement request. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Cindy Bowles.
Hello, my name is Cindy Bowles, and my husband Harold Bowles is trying to get his truck fixed in the pasture, and he's supposed to be here in a few moments. But I live at 10223 FM 922, Euro, Texas, and our place would be at the very south tip of the project of the wind farm, of the Wildcat Creek wind farm. And I do have to say that when we were approached by Josh, and which, by the way, is a very fine young man, Josh, we really think a lot of you, to lease our place for the wind farm, we considered it. And we wanted to look at the contracts, so Josh brought us a contract, and we looked at that. We asked some of our children and Boss, who is a fine businesswoman, and Daniel Bowles, and a rancher and farmer as well as we are, to look at the contract. And they said, Mom, before you do anything, we want you to get a lawyer to just look over the contract and make sure it's okay for you to sign. And so we did, and we got a lawyer that is an expert in the wind farms. And there were several things in there that he suggested we not accept. And so after looking at that, after talking with our neighbors around us in the immediate surrounding area of our farm, who are not for the wind farm, we made the decision that we would not be wanting to lease our land for the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm to come in and lease our land. And we did have the opportunities possibly to have a couple of wind turbines on our place, which would benefit us financially, of course. But we made the decision not to do that. And when we first started talking to Josh and the wind farm people, they never did mention an abatement at all at the very beginning of everything. And then all of a sudden we hear about an abatement, and we were kind of distraught because it never was told to us from the very beginning. So we felt like if they're hiding this, is there something else that they may be hiding from us? So another thing I'd like to say for the hospital is that wind turbines are not going to come to the hospital. They're not going to bring revenue to the hospital. People do. And with wind turbines, you have no people because you can't put houses next to wind turbines. And the ones that are constructed around houses, I've heard that there's noise, there's bright lights, which we can see along the horizon from our house, from the Munster one. We are just, we don't want our beautiful rolling hills of southwest Cook County to be invaded by the wind turbines, and for the beauty of our land, and for the sake of our neighbors. Many of our neighbors are against the wind farm. Several of our neighbors are for it, and we have seen some crossing things. And well, Harold, you didn't change your shirt.
No, I'm working cattle. I don't have time to come up here and add to anybody.
Come over on this side. Come around over here.
So I'll sit right here.
Okay. So anyway, but I would hope that you would look at this, and as David Sampson has talked about the financial pieces of the abatement, Harold and I both are against the abatement. We are against any wind farm, not just Wild Creek, but any wind farm from coming into our beautiful country. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you very much.
Robert Fuller.
Thank you. My name is Robert Fuller. My wife Jennifer and I have a ranch off of County Road 321. We've been there for 15 years now. We moved from California. We've made several trips here to look for a very, very nice piece of property for me to retire on, where we could raise our horses, where I could fish, where we could have a beautiful view. We have all that right now. Whenever anybody comes to visit us, they look out our picture windows, which face southwest toward Europe, and they say their heart rate just went down. Same thing happens to Jennifer and I every morning when we sit on the porch and have our coffee and look at this gorgeous view that we see. Our heart rate goes down. I just want to say that I'm against the abatement. I'm against looking out my window and seeing a wind farm, and I'm really against seeing my property values go down. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Susan Schumacher.
Hi, I'm Susan Shoemaker. My other half is Jean Shoemaker. And I must say, Cindy, if my husband came, his shirt would look worse than yours. It really does. So we've been to town before too, with the shirts look a lot dirtier than that. I work in town, so totally understand and get that. Out here we have a fine community. It's a very friendly, warm community. Cindy and Harold are close, good friends. We've lived there a number of years. Even though we live toward Europe, just north of the feed store there, we do have a Gainesville mailing address, so we are in Cook County, Gainesville Hospital District per se. And while there are I think there's about 35 members who've already signed their contracts, there's about 19, almost 20 that are in our present group who are wanting to sign, who either have just recently signed or will sign in just a few days. Now, when this project began, I have to admit, I didn't really know anything about wind turbines. I didn't really have time to learn, but hey, I made time and I learned more than I listened to some of the comments initially myself as far as noise, blinking lights, and that kind of thing. In fact, we went to Munster and stood underneath some of those and heard this gentle swishing sound and so forth. And also in asking more questions, I learned that there's been a lot of advances in technology, whether it's regarding the blinking lights or whether the hum would now be on the hub up there on the turbine. And also, as I understand it, these turbines that they're proposing in our area are to be about twice the distance of some of those in Munster. So if you can imagine, they're larger and twice the distance, but not necessarily twice as loud. So we've done quite a bit of research, and Cindy's correct too. We did secure legal advisement because it is quite the lengthy contract, only 55 pages or so, and I didn't really understand all of the context of that. But with that said, I know Cindy was a part of our group and was interested, and it was great working with her as well. But we've learned more and more through the process. And while we do like working with Josh and the EVP team, our attorney is located in Sweetwater. He's a premier wind expert attorney, legal advisement. As I understand it, he's the top legal advisor. His firm is the top legal advisor in Texas. He came highly, highly recommended. So since Cindy has left our group, we have proceeded with further negotiations. So there has been additional progress made, and EVP was willing to work with our attorney. So some of those conditions have improved as far as some of the language that was concerning some of our members. So we've asked a ton of questions and learned quite a bit, and we feel like we would like a project there. In fact, we kind of view the turbines as, it's simplistic beauty. It's not something that's we consider an eyesore. And yes, it will, be dotted through the countryside. However, too, we feel like in the future, we may need to look at a cleaner energy producing source as well. So there are just so many aspects to consider. And some of the comments that I heard too, I was alarmed at first, like some of the projects that were like in Hawaii or California. Some of those I hear are still an eyesore that have been abandoned. But times have changed and things have improved. Where in our contract we have language for restoration. They have to keep so much in reserves, to take it down and to restore the land, and it just goes on and on and on. So a lot of strides have been made, I would imagine, from those early days of those contracts. And I'd say it's been great with our community there at Garrett, and I hope this doesn't, cause too much dissension in our community, because it is a fine community and a fine school. And with that note on the school, I know when we were talking with our attorney somewhat recently, he talked about 2 schools near Sweetwater, and I don't know if I remember the exact names, whether one was Roscoe and one was Sweetwater, or who the other little town was, but one went ahead and gave the abatement and so forth, and their school has so much to offer for their youth and their children. The other one did not, and the school itself is becoming quite an eyesore and being kind of run down. So there are a lot of benefits, and as far as other industries, I'm not vastly knowledgeable about that, but as I understand it, other industries, are able to obtain abatements as well. And so, why not the wind energy project? And what's to say there couldn't be something else, like a hog farm or something coming in next door. You never can tell what might go next door as well. So there are that group of 18, 19 of us that will be signing if we haven't already in the very, very near future. We're about to wind up final negotiations. There's other 35 that already have signed, so that would make about 50, 55 that definitely are in favor of it, and for the favor of our school, out at the era, which would be great for the youth in that era. We appreciate your consideration.
Vicky?
My name is Kenneth Sicking. I'm a lifelong farmer, reside at 4524 FM 1198 Gainesville. My grandparents bought the farm where I live in 1918. It's been farmed by our family ever since. In the last 25 or so years, I've purchased 5 more tracts of land and farm all that myself. My brother was a partner with me. He got tragically killed in a farm accident. So I was left with the pay for this land, which I've gotten done. I've worked hard, and I'm proud of my land. And I'm in favor of the wind farm. I feel that it will not decrease the value of my land. If I thought so, I darn sure bought it. And I wouldn't have done it thinking I was gonna give it away if I signed up for the wind farm. So I personally do not feel it would devalue my land. So I'm in favor of the wind farm, and, you know, they're talking about spending a lot of money here, $200 million. And if we tax all that, that's a lot of tax. So I think y'all ought to consider part of a lot is a whole lot better than all of nothing. You turn this abatement down. So I think it would be very beneficial to the community. There'll be royalty payments to the landowners, which will get spent at local businesses in town. And even with the abatement, there's still going to be a sizable tax bill paid by the wind company. And I just feel it would be good for the community. So I appreciate y'all's support, and I hope you seriously consider supporting the wind farm. Thank y'all.
Okay, that's the end of the community input. Thank you all for your input. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on May 20th of next year. Hope you had a chance to review those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes by Shane.
I'll second.
And Darrell seconds. Any discussion on them? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And May and June financial report, Shelley's going to put that. Everyone do it, yeah.
Okay, so what we've done here is provide a trending of by year, and you can see October, November here's pretty blank, but we've dropped some numbers in. The fiscal year actually started in October. October, November would be when you had the hospital operations, so we're just kind of bringing those numbers forward. But then really what you can see is the trend of December through June. What we've added since last board meeting is May and June. And you can see in here under tax revenue, we have a credit of $3,700,000. What happened in November, October, I think, they booked the full amount of the taxes that were estimated as revenue for this year. And then audit said to them, you should be booking this every month. So they started accruing, thinking they should be accruing for next year. What should have occurred is that we should have taken that $5 million tax that we expected to collect, and we should have put it into deferred revenue into the balance sheet, and then we should have allocated 1/12 every month out. So all this is doing is attempting to correct for the year what the taxes are, but what you don't see, because you didn't detail it out, is the amount of money that was put in November. There's $5 million and something. And then what will happen is over the next 3 months, we have now the deferred revenue of $1.3 million. You'll see when we look at the balance sheet. But this will true it up to be accurate for the year. And then you can see the expenses that we have. We had salary and wages, which has to do with what the hospital provides for the last quarter as far as counting and Christie's services. And then down here under purchase services, you can see $31,000 in May, 26 of that was for the cost report. When the hospital's year end, or the district's year end is September, cost report is year end is September. So we filed a cost report. Then the transaction took place December 1. The hospital had to file an additional cost report for October, November, for the short year. And that's what those fees are related to, in addition to some other fees. Repair and maintenance is the roof. So you can see in here, back in February, we had $393,000 we paid on the roof. The issue with the roof is we have the money in restricted. It was an insurance claim. That money was set aside. And then as we pay that, we're unable to look at the fixed asset schedule and put a value on the roof because we have a value on the building. It was not split into parts. So normally if you have to have a whole new roof, you'd write off the old roof and you put the new roof on as a capital item. But because we don't have a cost to be able to do that, audit has said just expense what you got and the roof will keep depreciating as part of the building. So that's why you'll see the repair and maintenance is higher. I think they did come out and inspect the roof, and I think there are a couple more things they need to fix before that final payment can be made. And I think in restricted, there's still a couple $100,000 left, and we anticipate that that bill will be less than what's left in the restricted cash that's set aside for it. And then down here under insurance, there's a $102,000 credit. You can see insurance has had some ups and downs. When the change in the ownership, or as far as how the hospital was run, the district had to provide malpractice or tail coverage for the next 7 years for all the providers that had occurrence-based malpractice. That was thrown in here, and then there was a number of other policies the hospital or the district no longer needed to have because they're not running the hospital. So the hospital provides current malpractice, and then we cover the building and all the agreement. So there were some ins and outs. So what this is attempting to do is true us up to what should be in this year, and then the hospital or the district has already paid the malpractice for the next 7 years, and then we will allocate that out expense-wise over the next 7 years as it's used up. So when we look at this, this is not really a cash forecast. This is an accrual accounting based on what should have been recorded. So basically at the end of, go to the next page, Kristen. So basically at the end of this, our net margin is a minus $2,181,000. But when you add back anything that's not cash flow, which is depreciation and then bond interest, really where the bottom line is $1,644,000 for this year. That includes the 2 months of operating the hospital and then 7 months of just the district business. Now, there is some adjustments in there. You can see right here, this 2 million, or two, go back up. It's 222,000. So when the audit was done for the hospital or the district in September, there were things that were booked in October and November on the hospital books that the audit said those really apply to this period of time and should be taken back. One of those was this $222,000 of interest that was booked at a later date. When we were looking at that, because those bonds and that interest is already recorded in October and November, the correction had to come back against this. So there was some, audit. Another one that was a good example, and it's sitting, if you go up one page, Chrissy, there's an adjustment. Let's see. Okay, go back down. It's in the next line. Sorry. This 191 is the amount of money net of IGT and inventory adjustment. So in October, the hospital took inventory and they said, well, we really don't have as much as what we thought we did. And so that adjustment was put in the financials. Audit came in and said, that really applies back to the last 12 months and we should have booked that in September. So we had to bring that adjustment forward. So a couple $100,000 of inventory adjustment will offset that October and November supply expense. So I know this is a little confusing. This first year, this change has been a lot of whose is it, and we've always gone back to the contract. What we also did in May is we had BKD come in and we had 2 people come in, one that represents the district and another partner that's going to represent us. And we said to them, this is the agreement as we read it. Tell us how we should book things and if we've done it appropriately. So what this is representing is what we ended up with and what they told us to change. Okay? And our year end is in June, so our goal was to have everything done by June. Even though the district is not until September, we wanted to make sure we had it on both sets of books accurately. Is there any questions on this?
Can you show me where we was paying the management company to take care of our retirement system? What have we paid that management company since we transferred the hospital over December 15th last year?
You said manage the pension.
The pension fund, retirement fund,
Pension plan's terminated.
it's, yeah, we're with that for
That part's done. Are you talking about the one we're gonna take action on tonight?
the one we're supposed to discuss tonight. Is it built into this factor right now?
Well, not on this statement, because this is just accrual stuff, but I can tell you that we pay $5,400 a quarter for the fees.
Okay, how important do we pay since we transferred the hospital?
We are going to talk more.
We are gonna talk more about that.
Okay. If there's no more questions, we'll go to the balance sheet then. Okay, so this is the balance sheet, and although this is trended, a balance sheet is at a point in time. So at the end of June, this is what we're saying we have in cash. And one of the things we did, we split out each of these accounts, and what you can see is these 3 accounts that had cash in them, have been closed out, and it's been moved into the general operating fund. Part of that was that these were accounts that were set up for specific things, and those things were no longer needed, and they just had a balance in them, so that was moved to the general fund. I think that was something that was acted on at the last board meeting. Correct? Okay, and then you can see, so we have, so basically if you go down and you look at, the only changes in assets is, and one that was on the P&L I did not point out. There were, under other income, there was 81,000 this month, and 26 of that was money that the foundation has provided to buy bariatric equipment that's donated it onto the district's books. And part of our doing of that is the district owns all the assets, and our thoughts are that if the foundation is donating it, it really belongs to the district, and it would always maintain with the hospital rather than putting it on another set of books. So when you look at assets, you can see, I think under equipment, it went up right here under major movable. That went up to 26,000 of assets that got added to the book, and then of course we depreciated every month. And then I'm trying to think if there's any other changes. We talked about the tax revenue and that we should have booked it all to deferred, and that we made that correction. So right now there's $1,335,000 that's in deferred revenue, and that will be allocated over the next 3 months and fully shown as earned by the end of September. And I think that's really the only changes. Is there any questions on that? Okay. The next page is kind of a cash flow. We started this a couple months back when there were questions about what the cash balance was in the beginning when we started. So at the beginning of November or December, we had $7,403,000 in cash. And then you can see the activity each month as we go through. What I've attempted to do on this total column is really show you what has happened since the beginning of December through now. And really, the main things that make up this account, so we have $497,000 that came into the district. That has to do with $350,000 of hospital rent, plus Lake Kiowa, and then the other miscellaneous income, the $26,000 from the foundation. Part of the agreement with the hospital is in any quarter that we have a positive EBITDA, the first $625,000 comes back to the district. So our first quarter we did not have that. Our second quarter, which would have ended February, March, April, or May. And in June, we transferred $625,000 back to the district to kind of offset that working
Did
capital.
that go into our general fund?
It did. And then we have this $275,000 that came out of what this is really intended to show. It was moved out of the restricted cash for the roof and put into this account so that we could make the payment then out of the general operating account. That's where all the checks are cut from. So that's just kind of a transfer. So you can see on behalf of the district, we've paid $2,238,000 in expenses. That much was the roof. And I went through a little bit of that just to try to kind of analyze out. So you can see $766,000 were checks that were cut in November for expenses and didn't clear the bank until December. And then in February, we had this $400,000, which is part of the roof payment, is the big part there. And then in March, when the cost report was filed for September, we had to pay back $536,000. So that's why this $500,000 is so large. And then in June, we had to file a short cost report year for October and November, and $200,000 of that is those payments as well. In addition, in these vendor payments of $2 million, the first month we had a CRNA income guarantee for 6 months that really applied to last year. It was brought to the district and asked if they would pay for it. That was agreed that they would. So that $136,000 is in here as well. And then you can see also we had $1.2 million of working capital that the hospital drew down based on the agreement. If we didn't have the cash and we needed cash flow, we had up to $3 million available. We did draw on that to $1.6 million or $1.2 million. So if you look at just some of these other items are ins and outs. So what this really shows up here is money was collected from hospital AR that belonged to GCH. So some of this stuff is in, and then you see us transferring money back out. So those are kinds of ins and outs. So what I really attempted to show you is what really came in the account, went out of the account that is recorded in financials. So it says $497 the miscellaneous income, the $625 that we put in, moving the roof money into here to pay the bills. Those bills were paid, and then in addition, we drew out the $1.2 million, and then we had another $68,000 in the district for interest income. And that really all nets down to this $1.9 million that is a difference in what we started with in December and where we're sitting today. And these accounts are your operating accounts, they're not the restricted. So we'll look at the restricted next. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you have anywhere wrote down somewhere where how much we spent on indigent care?
What you spent on what?
Indigent care.
Yes, it is in the financials, and I'm not sure, let me see a minute. It's under non-operating on the bottom, I believe, under other. It's not, it's commingled with some other things, but so far this year, it's $1,867,581.
How much?
$1,867,581.
That was all spent on indigent care?
Correct. The way the indigent care is funded is you IGT to the state for programs that we can get matching funds from. And part of that is the prior year indigent care was paid late, so there was some in December and January that really applied to the prior state year. But yes, that's the number through June.
So how much money did the taxpayers of this county, not the IGT payment, how much did the taxpayers of this county pay indigent care?
I would think it would be the 1.857.
We collect 1.3 million, we paid 1.8.
Where do you get the 1.3?
I think that's what we collect from the taxpayers, 1.3, the best of my recollection.
Well, we have, do you want to put out that other? In the next year, though, I don't know if it's gonna help this year. At the last board meeting, Jim brought in a presentation that he did, and it showed, what we looked at was 1.1, I think, that the M&O fund has, the 600,000 that we would be paying in rent. In addition to the 625 that we pay quarterly if we have the excess funds, and that would come up to above what y'all pay.
Y'all get all that back with the IGT payment, best I remember what he was saying, plus our rent money that we get $50,000 a month, that all goes back. So really, the taxpayers don't get anything out of their investment. But my question is, how much money did our local people pay for indigent care?
I would say it's the 1.1 million, because the rest was funded through those other pieces.
It's all of that, Jimmy. It's all of the M&O goes that, remember the, I think there may be some confusion on the indigent care program,
What, you have to classify what's indigent, it's not just chapter
Well,
61
originally-
indigent, it's
Originally, from what I
self-pays.
understand, the district had voted in an indigent care tax. In the last couple of years, that's got turned into a maintenance and operation tax without the vote of the taxpayer. So we're still collecting that money to pay indigent care. My question is, how much money did our local taxpayers, we have been collecting 1.3 million for indigent care. My question is, how much of our local taxpayers' money is going to pay indigent care?
let me correct something for you, Jimmy. The M&O tax has always been M&O tax, not indigent care, because we don't tax for indigent. It's that we use all of the M&O for indigent, and it's always been used for indigent care. And the indigent care has been higher than that amount usually is. Now, you see, when we were under, the hospital was under the district control, and you see these figures like 250,000 used and, for what's called indigent care. That's for one program. That's for one program that the state mandated, but the indigent care that we covered was higher than that. They cover even more than what we cover. And so what we're doing is continuing to reinvest that M&O dollars into indigent care. That's why we use it for IGT. We have to as a county. They can't do it. We have to do that. So we invest all of that money under the IGT program because that returns more that can be used for people who can't afford to pay. And that's what it's used for.
But with all this money that we're collecting back, then we ought to be able to get away from that 1.3 million that the taxpayers are paying in. Or if you're calling him another.
But it's returned because what we get, we turn right around and reinvest in that particular program. So that goes right back into the healthcare this needs. Think about it in simple terms here. We, as a district, you've been here, all of us with the last 3 years now, we know that at least we can look back at 3 years. And the struggle that we've had as a district hospital to maintain the hospital with the current taxes we've had, with the current M&O, paying bills like we had, we were in real trouble. We managed to go into a company that's leasing us. They've got some benefits.
Let me just correct something real quick, Andy. When we were in trouble, that was before me and Ken got on the board, okay? But if you look at that top number up on that top left, that's just a little piece, because there was more money than that when this thing got leased. But that's where we was at in December.
Yeah.
This hospital was making money before the lease. If you don't believe it, look right there at the top number.
Well, we were making money, sure we were making
Right there
money,
it shows.
but we were also spending it too. Yeah, we were. But remember, when we went into
That's
the
clear.
lease, we also realized that when CHC took over the hospital lease, they could not take over the hospital and get all these new contracts without some kind of help, which they did through the AR. Isn't that what they did for the AR? They were given the AR so they could get this up and going. So all of the, I think we've got to look at it from the standpoint of we're still in the business of providing health care in this community.
They got all they are, and if you accounts receivable for people who might not know what they are, but if you'd add that 5 million of AR to this 7, where would we be?
I don't see how you can add it because one's an
Well, that was
ending
money
balance.
that the hospital was due. The hospital district made that before the lease.
Well, it's.
So really,
But we also
we're drifting off here, and my whole deal is that money for indigent care. It appears to me that the money's just going directly now to the people running the hospital or the hospital itself. And, before, that money was going dollar-wise to take care of indigents. And I understand the IGT money and all that, I understand all that, but, my concern is about our local taxpayers.
Well, and I think so, but I do believe that, we have auditors look at this, and I believe every bit of money that we
I'm not
reinvest.
saying nothing illegal about it. All I asked the question is how much of our local taxpayer money is actually going to pay indigents.
I would have to agree, as we see on there, that one point, all of the M&O. All of it. What we use it for. So, go ahead, continue on. Yeah, sure.
Okay, go to the next page and then we'll see the restricted account. So here's where the restricted cash is. And you can see, we started at $1.9 million and today we're at $3,760,000. Part of this is we've had some, due to the bankruptcy and the refiling and some of the different things in that transaction, the refinance of bonds, there's been some activity related to that. So this is some refunds on bond expense. I think what they said is the bankruptcy attorney was paying some things got paid through the closing, and so there was some stuff that was refunded. There was bond interest paid in December of $1,278,000. This is the portion of the money that comes in from taxes. So we had $4.8 million come in from taxes. Of that, 1.27 or 1.237 is moved to the M&O based on the percentage that's applied there. And then the M&O, of course, has that money, that 1.237 coming in here into this account. So we have the INS, which is your interest in principal, and then you have your M&O account. And then in the M&O account, you have your IGTs that have been paid out on behalf of the hospital to get the state matching fund. And then you have the interest that's been earned on that. That brings us to the $3,760,000 that's in there today. Any questions on that?
Okay, we have the May and June financial statement. Do we have a motion to approve the financial statement?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Lisa seconded. Any further discussion on those? All in favor of approving the financial report, say aye. All opposed, say same sign. Action items, consider and approve the tax abatement for the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm. We have some folks from here that are going to present that to us. Sorry, I don't know your name, so I have to introduce yourself.
Evening, everyone. My name is Josh Kuhn. I'm the project manager working on the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm. Real quickly, before we get started, I just want to hand out some information about wind energy. If you might just take one and pass it down.
Am I right? You're right. Let me shift over to this side.
Yeah. So these are just some fact sheets, some of which have some information about wind farms and property values, wind farms and the environment, some of the benefits to the local economy, et cetera, that I thought you might find interesting. But real quick, we prepared a presentation here for you to explain a little bit about the project and why we're here tonight. Before we get started, I would like to address some of the comments that were made in the public comment period, specifically regarding property values. We have spoken with the county's chief appraiser, Doug Smithson, and Commissioner Leon Clement is on record at the Commissioner's Court in April, having said that Doug Smithson has not found there to be land evaluation from either of the two prior wind farms that went in Cook County, north of Munster. Furthermore, we've built projects all across the country. In many of those cases, we've been able to come in and build phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, even phase 5 of those same projects. We've been accepted back into the community to build additional phase, and I think that's a testament to how we've done business and the fact that these projects are not devaluing the land because neighbors and people would not be interested in doing more work with us if that was the case. On top of that, I think as far as viewshed is concerned, that's really a individual private property rights issue. I think that every landowner and the many landowners that we have within the community, as Susan said, 50, 60 landowners who are supportive of the project, would tell you that they want to have the right to do what they feel fit on their property that they own. And so I think that's something they should be able to do, and something that we would ask for the support of the community and yourselves in order to make that happen.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just gonna say.
And I know Josh wanted to jump in and address some of the concerns that were brought up. So let me introduce myself. My name is Aaron Branham. I'm an Associate Director of Project Management with EDPR. I've been with the company 10 years, and during that time, I've worked all across North America, in New York, California, Texas. I currently am based in Oregon. But I think during those 10 years, I built over 550 megawatts of wind farms. I've worked with hundreds of landowners. And I think what Josh said is true. We have been invited back many times into these communities because of our reputation and the effort that we put into trying to be good stewards. I wanted to show this map to start off because I think this gives a good sense of the level of operation EDPR has. I'm not really sure what this graphic is. That's definitely, oh, there we go. So across North America, we have 53 operating projects. 48 of those are wind farms and 5 of those are solar facilities. The solar facilities are primarily in California and the Carolinas. We are in 14 states and 2 provinces, Ontario and Mexico. And the cumulative operation that we have across this continent is over 6,000 megawatts of operating capacity. And I think that's no small feat. And we've been working as a company for over 15 years. And we have a unique business model. There are several within the renewable energy space. But what's important to note about EPR is that we are both a developer, a constructor, an owner, and an operator. So the people and the company that you're working with today is the company that you would be working with throughout the operational life cycle of the wind farm. I'm going to let Josh take over for a second to talk about the wind development process, though.
Yeah, so to take a quick step back and just give a real high-level overview of what it takes to develop a successful wind project. First and foremost, we need to have the land in order to develop, design, and construct the project. And so we've been working in the community here since 2017 is when we initially reached out to landowners to kind of gauge the interest of the local community. What we found was that there was a lot of folks that were interested and willing to work with us on development of another wind project. Having seen the 2 projects go in north of Munster. So we began signing leases in order to get participation in the project about a year ago now, and have signed up a number of landowners. Another important aspect, obviously, is making sure that it's a windy site, and so we now have 3, soon to have 4 operational meteorological testing towers out on the site measuring the wind resource in order to ensure that we are able to actually develop an economically viable project. We've also been working through the interconnection study process, which is often one of the longer lead items in the development of a wind farm. We began our full interconnection studies last summer with Encore and ERCOT, Encore being the transmission owner of the project, of the line that we hope to interconnect the project onto. And those are in advanced stages right now. We hope to sign an interconnection agreement as early as next month. And then one of the last boxes to check in order to for our company to develop and build a project. There are some companies that will build projects and sell the energy on the spot market. Our company is not willing to take on that risk. We want some insurance, some visibility that we will be able to have a successful project that will run the length that we expect. And so securing a power off-taker or a power purchase agreement is one of the steps that we're taking right now. We have someone on the hook, basically, that is interested in purchasing the power, provided that we can get everything wrapped up in order to build the project next year. So soup to nuts, that entire process can take anywhere from about 4 to 6 years from the greenfield prospecting stage through to operations. Can actually take it as short as 3 years, which is what we're shooting for here. We're right now in kind of the tier 2 stage of project development, if you will, and are beginning to secure some of the engineering and procurement contracts and equipment that we would need in order to build the project next year. Once we do hopefully have all those boxes checked, everything in place, that construction time frame is typically 9 months to a year for a project of this size. And so we plan to hope to start construction next spring and have everything up and operational by the end of 2020.
I think an important part about that construction process, someone commented, is that we're not bringing thousands of jobs, and we're not testifying that we are bringing thousands of jobs. But we are allowing landowners to keep their land, to have an additional revenue stream, and during this construction process, there will be hundreds of people on site, and those fringe benefits not only roll down to the landowners hosting turbines, they roll down to every business in the community selling gas, food. I mean, you're lucky if you're the guy selling beer for all those construction workers. There is a lot of money that's going to be pumped in during this time. So that's not something that should be overlooked. That beer joke lanes better some other time.
So all this to say that there's a lot of time and effort, obviously, that goes into developing a successful project. As you can see here, we have over 35 priority projects at some stage or another in our development pipeline, with over 730 megawatts of projects in Texas alone. We have over 500 people in the United States working on all those projects. So, we're no small company, but we do have to allocate the resources where it makes the most sense. And so there's a lot of internal competition amongst our own projects to vie for that, for those resources, for that time, for that money in order to get these projects to the finish line. We think the Wildcat Creek project is definitely one of those competitive projects that we hope to build next year, but there are many others in our pipeline as well too. Not only is there competition internally amongst our projects, there's a very competitive climate in the wind industry right now, and we face a lot of external competition from other development companies, other wind and solar energy developers who are looking to secure a limited number of power purchase agreements that exist both locally and throughout the United States. So there's hundreds of projects under development in Texas. Those are vying for a limited number of agreements with that utility or private commercial or industrial off-taker. There's many more projects across the United States that are also vying for those same power purchase agreements with those commercial, private, or industrial customers. A lot of which in states that do not have as heavy of a tax burden or have incentives in order to reduce that tax burden. So really, when we're coming here asking for a tax abatement or talking about a tax abatement today, we're looking to try to level the playing field for this project in order to be able to compete with other projects within the renewable energy industry. So speaking a little bit about the project itself, the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm is slated to be a 180 megawatt project comprised of, and this is actually a bit of an outdated scenario, comprised of 52 turbines of a couple different sizes located in southwestern Cook County. As I mentioned, we hope to construct this project next year and be commercially operational by the end of 2020. The transmission owner that we're working with being Encore Electric Utility, we have 4 Met Towers currently installed. And then, as I mentioned, we're working towards getting the land signed up that we would need. This number is actually dated as well as just this past week. We've now signed over 7,400 acres of land and are well on our way, as Susan mentioned, signing the remaining land that we would need, working with that last landowner group who had been negotiating for the contract on behalf of the attorney. And I think it is also important to mention, I think as Kenneth alluded to, that this project will bring with it a very significant upfront capital investment of over estimated here at $210 million in expenditures. Here's just a quick graphic showing the approximate location of where we plan to install the turbines. You can see the Tyler Bluff and Wolf Ridge wind farms north of Munster there in green and pink. The red outline boundary there is where we intend to install our equipment. So we're here this evening just to introduce ourselves and introduce the ask for a Chapter 312 abatement. We were able to approve a reinvestment zone with Cook County back in April to enable us to come to you here tonight and apply for or speak with you about tax abatements for all the other taxing jurisdictions. We're currently working with all the applicable taxing jurisdictions within the county, including obviously the Gainesville Hospital District. We estimate approximately 25% of our project area will be located within the Gainesville Hospital District. And we would also like to just mention or briefly bring up that in order for us to move forward and consider an abatement, we would have to speak with you about setting up some guidelines and criteria if those are not also already in place. So the partnership with the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm and y'all obviously brings with it some significant benefits, as we mentioned, the opportunity to significantly increase tax revenue for the county, as well as all the taxing jurisdictions, including yourselves, as well as diversify that tax base with renewable energy and create a number of high-paying full-time jobs, as well as hundreds of temporary construction jobs, as Aaron mentioned. Our benefit would be that, as I mentioned, we'd be able to offer a lower power price when negotiating those long-term power purchase agreements, enhance the financial attractiveness of the project, give it a better likelihood that we would be able to build the project next year, resulting in a win-win for us and yourselves. And with that, I think that concludes our presentation here. I would like to mention that our Director of Development, Roy Peterson, wasn't able to attend tonight, but he has been up on site regularly with me and Aaron, conducting these presentations, and is also a resource for any questions or concerns that you might have. And real briefly, I don't know if anyone from our tax team, Chad or Danielle, did you have anything you wanted to say? Otherwise, we can open up for questions.
I got several questions. What's the right of way distance from these units? How much is your right of way for each one of these units? How far? North, south,
Right, so we have a exclusion area around the turbines themselves that's purely a safety setback. That's a 650-foot diameter in which we restrict the use to agricultural or ranching. So we ask that no new structures be built within that area, but that is, again, purely for safety reasons. I can't imagine that many folks would want to build within 300 feet of the turbine anyways, but that is the setback around the turbine itself. We also have setbacks from our access roads and our collection line so that we can continue to operate and maintain our infrastructure.
Was your question from property lines or from the turbine?
No, no. Your setback from each unit, how far? How close can I build to that unit? I understand. I'd like to golf out at Wolf Creek.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I just want to know how close I can build that cover.
So yeah, 650 foot back.
What's the distance between each one of them?
So that,
Those two down in the corner next to that line down there, how come they're offset? Now that you got back to that.
so those projects, I just want to clarify, those projects up there are the existing operational projects that were developed by NextEra and EDF. So I can't speak to their siting process for those up there. This area here would be the project area in which we would develop our turbines, and we haven't landed on a final layout, which is why I haven't provided one here. But in general, these turbines will be larger than the ones north of Munster, and so they'll be they will be required to be spaced out further apart. In general, approximately a quarter mile east to west between each turbine, and at least a mile north-south between rows of turbines. So there'll be likely 3 or so rows of turbines. They won't be as scattershot as the ones you see up there, and that's just kind of an improvement that we've seen in the siting process over the past 5 to 10 years, especially given the prevailing southerly wind in this area. It makes the most sense to space out rows of turbines a mile between each.
You know, I checked a lot of this, about these homeowners out.
Right.
The story is there's 14,000 of these boats sitting out there unused in the United States. They're just sitting there. Now, what are you guys going to do with them after? You may not be around. I won't be around.
Right.
What are you going to do with these people after you wear this unit out? You're going to collect money starting day one when he starts generating electricity.
Right.
You're going to pay me a few measly dollars for a payment.
So So that's a great question. As Susan mentioned, there has been a lot of progress made since the early days of the industry, as far as writing language into the lease that requires us to decommission our project should we not operate it or abandon it. So we do have requirements in the lease that requires us to put aside a decommissioning fund in the amount equal to the assessed value of the equipment minus the cost of the cost of decommissioning minus the assessed value of the equipment. And we will, and that's basically an assurance to the landowner that there'll be funds set aside in order to decommission the project. However, if our company is around and we fully intend to do that decommissioning work, then we wouldn't draw on that bond. We would decommission ourselves at the end of the life.
Or you have to tell us what you're paying each landowner per unit for these units sitting on their land?
I'm not at privilege to say that. That's confidential between our.
Don't have to ask.
Fair question.
Why do you need this statement? I saw all these units that you've got all over the United States and everything. You don't have any money in your pocket to fund this without getting abatement from this hospital district?
So the reason we're coming to you, like I mentioned, is because the industry is in an increasingly competitive climate. And so other projects in other counties in Texas that are receiving these abatements are able to compete because they have this tax abatement. And so in order for us to be able to compete, we're needing this as well.
Now, what I'm hearing from you is Cook County is trying to get you guys in here. So to trap you in here, we need to give you an abatement. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
So this is an economic development tool, you're correct. So this tool is used across the state of Texas in order to attract investment into the community. But in order for us to be able to construct this project, we would require some tax relief, as taxes in Texas are the second highest after operating expenses form of expenses that we pay on this project.
And just to give, just a little, just to add.
This is Daniel Thurber.
Oh,
Thurber
sorry,
knows
yes.
He is our tax subject matter expert.
Yes, I'm Danielle Thurber and this is Chad Gardner. We both work in property tax at EDP Renewables. We'll be working with Josh on this project.
Would you stand so we can
Okay.
hear you?
Are we gonna let everybody talk?
But just,
No,
I want
she's
to
with
add
the company.
that property taxes, they occupy about 20% of our operating budget behind turbine and O&M expenses, so it is the second highest expense when we're looking at our financial statements. And when we're projecting out property taxes in our investment model, it can have an impact on the pricing model as well when we price to.
Can you speak up where we can hear you?
Stand up here at the podium if you would, please.
Get out there in the middle, we can see what you're
Okay.
saying.
All right, my name is Danielle Thurber. This is Chad Gardner.
Yeah, I'm Chad Gardner. I'm the property tax manager for EV Renewables. And I don't mean to cut you off, but to specifically ask your question, my job is to manage all of our operating projects. In every state that we're in where we have an operating project, if it is available, if an incentive is available, those projects do happen. It's everyone else in the industry is taking advantage of these economic development incentives that are out there. So to make this project viable, to secure a power purchase agreement, which is the only way we would build this project, is to get some type of property tax incentive. It levels the playing field, as Josh had said earlier.
Well, a lot of people sitting on the board are not investing for themselves, but some of them are. I spent 30 years in construction field. I didn't get abatements. When I built a job, I went to the bank and financed it. And that's how I paid for that job. I don't like to see somebody ride payroll. We're already subsidized by the federal government.
Right.
Okay?
Are you referring to the production tax credit?
And that's been going on since, windmills, big windmills have been in Texas since 1970. And there's a bunch of them out there that's dead right now. They're still standing there. You guys are still making money, but when it quits operating, you either rebuild it or you walk in and leave it. And like I said, there's 14,000 of them in this county. I'm not for sure, but we got plenty of natural gas.
Yes, and the oil and gas industry is incentivized as well. There are also incentives, property tax incentives and other tax incentives for all these other industries besides oil.
When what's flowing, you don't generate electricity.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Huh? Beg your pardon?
Yeah, I was agreeing.
Okay.
That's exactly.
What generates my electricity is my natural gas, my oil, my turbine, my hydro dams.
So I think if that's the conversation, we should talk about the capacity factors offline, because
No,
lesser,
we need to, you know, you're trying to sell me tonight,
that's right.
and, you're trying to sell me, okay? So I still have questions, so,
I want to answer them.
okay? So we'll move on to the property taxes, but back to the property taxes, my property taxes go up every year. What you guys are asking me to do is give you an 80% abatement for 10 years.
Just to state for the record, we have not asked for any percentage of the abatement yet.
It's in your program right here, that you're looking for an 80% abatement. It's in writing. It's in writing.
We will be coming back, we will discuss with data. I think at the core, for the wind industry across Texas, there's the 312 and 313 abatement available to every county to offer. If that went away, we wouldn't be here. But we're trying to compete with other wind generators for people who are looking to specifically buy wind. And so to level that playing field, that's something that our facility will need. If we can't secure that, then it's unlikely that we would be able to compete with other counties who do accept it. That's all I wanted to do.
All those units sitting up there right now, that be one of them that is supplying electricity to the state of Texas.
I can't tell you who.
There's not.
You can't call me, sir.
Florida Power and Light has got the ones at Wolf Creek, okay? Ask the same question to them. It's all shipped out. Are you leaving it, are you supplying any electricity here?
So if we were to build this facility, it would be sold to a company that would sell that power in ERCOT, which is Texas. You cannot export that electricity outside of ERCOT, which runs from the Panhandle all the way down to the southern border of Mexico.
Unless the rules have changed, which I'm not gonna say they haven't, when Wolf Creek come in here, I asked them, where will this power go? Will it stay in Texas? It will not stay in Texas. It is legal.
I can't speak for Florida Power and Light.
Okay.
I don't work for them. We work for EDP Renewables. That power would stay in ERCOT, which is the region of Texas where that power would go. But that's not something we can look that up. You don't have to take my word for it.
Oh, no, we're having a good conversation.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do.
That's what we want to do. The batteries, once these batteries wear out, what's the disposal on them?
We won't have batteries on
You
this
don't
facility.
have batteries anymore?
Not on this facility.
You don't have batteries.
No, this would just be a wind farm, wind turbine.
It transfers the electricity into the power line, transmission line.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And you said that you guys are bringing all these jobs here. Once these units are put up, those jobs leave.
That's correct. I said during the construction period, there will be several hundred jobs. When that's done, there will be,
And you're estimating there's gonna be $1.4 million, $420,000 worth of benefits to this county from that. Estimated.
I don't know where that number is coming.
$1,420,000 in direct sales.
So the
tax.
sales tax.
That's a lot of sales tax. But that unit, it's gonna take 2 years to put this in, did you say?
I believe the construction period will be 12 months,
Well,
starting next year through the end of the year.
12 years. So you're gonna generate for this county roughly $1.4 million sales tax. That's an estimate, that's a good estimate, guys.
These individuals are tax experts, so 1.4 million, where did that number, can you explain how that was derived?
Most of them, I see like these guys, most of them works on this, bring their own trailers in, because there's not enough housing in this county. Okay? So,
We have several large cities within an hour, that's a normal commute time for construction workers. I think there will be plenty between Gainesville, Benton, Dallas, and that's well within the range.
Yeah, that's like I say, I think that 1.4 million is the sales tax estimate. I'm the property tax manager, so we have another sales tax department. But what we're conservatively estimating tax revenue over a 30-year project life, this project to be $44 million of tax revenue to the town.
That's across all taxing jurisdictions.
All taxing jurisdictions, the counties, the 2 school districts, hospitals.
well, way we drafted this, it doesn't say over the 9 units. You thought construction. So, but anyhow, You guys put out a lot of paperwork, and I read it, and I check it out. I got a next statement like that. We get into this, what we're going to do.
Another question, if it's not the 80% that's in our literature, what is the percentage?
So we've come here today to introduce the project and provide a little bit of information about why tax abatements will be necessary for this project. At this point in time, we're not asking the board to decide on an abatement ask. We haven't, what we're planning on doing is working with the county to further that discussion with the Chapter 312 tax abatement application that we've submitted to the county. Once we do have further visibility on that process, at that point, we would like to come to y'all and provide our official ask for an abatement.
That'll give us some time to research.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of concerns, but one we've already talked about, that's the lack of permanent jobs, so we don't have to go there again. You talked a little bit about some resources in town that have not shown the drop in property value. And I believe, in that's easily researched. But what I would have a hard time researching and giving you the opportunity to speak to all of us about it is, how can you measure the loss of property value or the lack of growth in property value? Because when I think about building my personal home next to a windmill, I think I would cringe at the idea of looking at a set of plans and deciding it's going to go right next to a wind farm. So I have a hard time, but maybe you can help me understand how you could measure the lack of growth and value, the lack of appreciation in those same areas, even though you can show us that maybe the land hadn't appreciated around the windmills we have in the county. I'm trying to understand how you might measure the lack of appreciation, which is going to directly affect this district in the future.
That's kind of hard for me to be able to answer that question because I am only looking at the property value of the wind farm. I do not have knowledge to answer that question about the surrounding areas that our company does.
And I understand, I was going to be really impressive.
It's a very the question you're answering. It's a very complex question to answer for sure.
Don't you see the trend in some of these, because you've got them all over the United States, don't you see the trend in those particular areas? What do they do to the ultimate, to the property value, as far as appreciate versus depreciate?
I mean, are you still referring to surrounding property areas?
Yeah, don't you see it though, when you're looking, I understand you're only concerned about the property tax of the windmill, but surely in your business, you've got to be concerned with the area around, but you're not. You're not concerned with the whole, that's part of your community, isn't it?
So we can speak anecdotally to that, like I mentioned before, whereas we've been able to build multiple phases successfully of projects in the same community, in the same county. And if land was devaluing, folks were unhappy with the situation immediately surrounding the projects, because we can only build, one project within that project area. The next project area will have to be somewhat adjacent to that project area. If we were building projects and folks were unhappy with the results and their land devaluing, then we would not be invited back into the community in order to build second, third phases. I've also driven up into Munster and seen recent development, recent building going on within the town, adjacent to the wind farm project, where there's been new houses going in. So I think that's another anecdotal, observation of new development within wind farms, within proximity.
Monster, it's a very tight community. Okay? Where you're seeing building new houses and everything, it's at least 3 miles away from those units. Okay? And there is some mad people over there at that Wolf Ridge. And they've been mad since they moved in there. Because it has to evaluate the property. Now, we run cattle on it. I farm. I don't farm, I raise cattle. I can run cattle out there, but I still can't build anything out there.
So yeah, I'm not aware of the restrictions that NextEra or Florida Power and Light or anyone else has. All I can speak to is the setbacks from our turbines, which, like I said, are 650 feet from the
Like I said, I
space.
play golf, and I get within 50 feet of them. And yours are gonna be bigger than those. Those are 250-foot wind fans up there. And I can stand down there, and I only got one ear. And with the wind blowing very lightly, it's more than a pushing noise. When the bearing goes out of that unit, it goes co-lump. When the door opens on the nose of it, it clanks. It's very distracting when you're trying to play golf.
We won't put any of these hours on the golf course.
I would be able to sleep with that at night. Why, if you got the freight train coming by.
So
We appreciate you coming and letting us know, and obviously you're not looking for a decision. We can do more research on this and wait.
I do have a couple of questions before we move on. Whenever that's designated a reinvestment zone, how much is the match the federal government gives to every dollar that you invest? You know what that percentage is?
There is no federal link to the reinvestment zone. That is a state.
Subsidy money, right?
Like if somebody wanted to buy some of my property and they was wanting to turn it into, get a reinvestment zone established. And, I was thinking that they told me if they got that established, that the federal government would spend about, $70 for every 30 that was invested. And I just was wondering.
no, so this reinvestment zone is purely just a tool to enable us to come to y'all and talk about a Chapter 312 program.
It's just an opportunity for taxing units to enter into a tax
I
abatement.
understand, I read all the rules. Have y'all ever moved from an area and just quit and abandoned and left when you was this far into it because you didn't get a tax abatement from an entity or two?
Yes.
Really?
I think when you looked at the state map with the colors that Josh showed, we're competing against a lot of projects. If we can't make the return that our capital requires, it will go elsewhere.
So is this the last entity that you guys are coming to see, or is there still more?
No, it's not.
So where else you gotta go yet?
We have not yet engaged with the Clear Creek Water District, and we're still in preliminary stages of pursuing abatement applications with all of the Chapter 312 tax.
I'd understood that Munster Hospital District voted it down, your abatement.
That's correct. Yes,
So they done voted on it,
they have voted on it, yes.
and you're not asking us to vote on it tonight.
That's correct.
You know, we talked about devaluation of property surrounding. I haven't studied that, I haven't really looked into it, but I do know of a very fine feller that was living up there close to Turtle Hill, had a nice business up there. And whenever the windmills moved in, he moved out. Thank goodness he moved over close to where I live, and he's a great guy and a great neighbor. But, I do know that guy left a real nice place and moved. And, have y'all seen that happen much, or is that just the only one? You know, I know Mr. Fuller said he likes looking out, and seeing, you know, the scenery that he has. You know, you guys are young. Hey, I'm getting pretty old, and I'm like Mr. Fuller. I like looking. Matter of fact, my wife's sitting right there and she'd tell you I don't have any blinds or curtains on my house. I live 3/4 of a mile from the highway, so nobody can see in unless they got binoculars. And don't none of y'all try that, because I got a loaded rifle. So, but anyway, and the reason why is because I've got the neighbors, and I want to look out at the jackrabbits, I want to look out at the cottontails, I want to look out at the birds. And I can understand Mr. and Miss Fuller there. They want to look at what they have. And they enjoy that scenery. I enjoy the scenery. Now, I have the windmills, them are to my west. When I ask people that come to my place, I say, how far do you think the windmills are? Now, you can see them real easy from my place because I'm up on a hill, real nice hill, you can see forever. And they say, oh, that's about maybe 2-3 miles. I'm guessing at about 10, maybe 15 miles. So it's a pretty good ways over there. But here's the deal. In my opinion, the weather pattern has changed since they got there for our area. Have y'all had any dealings where people are saying the weather pattern changed, or does it affect the weather pattern?
No, so I think.
Well, let me tell you why,
Sure.
because always the rain, since I was a kid, the rain would follow the Red River. If you was along Red River, you was gonna get rain. Well, guess what? Since the windmills are there, it don't go follow the Red River no more. I can sit at my house and I can watch that rain stop just past them windmills. And I've seen it a many a time. My life sitting there, I'll tell you the same thing. It has affected that weather pattern. The rain don't follow the river no more. And it gets just past them windmills, it'll stop, and I can sit right there seeing that rain, and I'm sitting here waiting on rain, and it stops right there.
Sure. I think it's best to let us provide other people who have researched that. We're not authorities on weather. I can say that we study the wind at our projects for numerous years before they go in. We have those patterns after they go in, real time, and we have not seen changes in that. So you want to take my word for it, I think we should let people who are weather researchers provide that information. I'm a project manager, so
Unless there's some more
One more
questions.
One more question.
we're happy to speak with you
One more.
offline as long as you like. I know that everyone's
Make it a
time
good
constrained.
It is a good.
All right. Not a long one, but a good one.
Y'all, any of your company, anywhere in the United States, live within those windmill turbines?
I live within a quarter mile of the wind turbine.
Okay, you been.
And do I look healthy?
You didn't look out.
No, but you're gonna get there.
Oh, no, see, I'm not gonna get there. You're probably
Because I stopped
healthy.
it this time.
You're probably healthy. I'm just curious, because, we got a lot of people here that's unhappy.
I know.
And I'm only one vote, okay? But I will spend it wisely. I'll spend it wisely.
I would just ask you guys to consider the 50 to 60 landowners that Susan referenced here that are interested in seeing this project take place in that local area where they own property.
This thing's gonna be there for years. So, I don't, what these landlords property owners, where I live, I got a sign on my tree, I got two big oak trees, that big around. The first one says, you can read this within range. The second one's private will be
We're gonna
shot.
move on now.
That's the way I feel about my property.
So I would like to say, we will make ourselves available to any of you to answer as many questions you have.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all for coming, appreciate it. There's no action on number 6. Number 7, consider approving amendment to the budget for additional IGD funding. We don't really have an action item on this one. It's for the benefit of transparency. You all got that email when we had that non-budgeted IGT requirement, and I sent it all out to you. The problem with the IGTs, they obviously have to be paid in the 24 hours, how many days or
Usually about 5 days before we get a number.
so we don't get a time to do a board meeting, but we can cover that under the budget anyway, because the budget has been, what we've actually had to pay for IGT has been under budget of what the budget's come up with. But we wanted to be able to just, if you have any other discussion on those IGT payments, Shelley's constantly trying to get on board with all of those that are coming and what that figure is. But it's because it's such a floating figure, she never knows until the last minute. So as much as she can, during our budget workshop, she's going to give us a little figure of what she anticipates for next year. But again, it's still a figure. So just wanted to keep you all appraised of the fact that.
And let's back up to number 6. It says action item. It doesn't say informational item.
Well, but there's no action to take. Should we, you want to make a motion to table it?
I think we need to make a
Okay,
motion
let's
to
make a
table.
motion to table.
Better do something like that.
Okay.
Let's just consider
Sure.
it an action item.
Would you like to make a motion to table this?
The motion I'd like to make is that, we don't listen to this program anymore. We just completely taken off the table.
Well, you can
I
make that motion.
This item is taken completely off the table, completely.
Okay, I've got a motion to take item of the tax abatement for the Wildcat Creek Wind Farm off the table by Ken. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
You've got a second by. Okay, so any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of taking this thing off the table, just signify by raising your hand.
hope so.
I was hoping they'd work me in.
All opposed to taking that off the table, raise your hand. So we're not gonna take it off the table. Another motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we table it.
Motion
Spending
table.
time for some research.
Table.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, got a motion and a second to table this for later, for more research or have them come back. We've got a lot of stuff here to look at too. All in favor of that, say, approving that, say aye. And not approving it, say aye.
I'm gonna go with the high this time.
You're gonna go with which? Tabling it or not? No, okay, so two, okay. Yeah, against it, you're saying?
That's right.
Okay, two against. Okay. Now we, again, consider and approve the amendment for the budget. Again, I don't have, I guess what I'll ask, what would we have there?
No action.
No action. We don't have any action on that. It's a proof amendment, but we don't need an amendment to the budget for that one right now. We're still under, but we can do we can amend that part for that last budget. Do you remember what that number was, Shelley? Can you tell us? It was a it was roughly about a $250,000 IGT. And that was unbudgeted.
The one that we did
That was unbudgeted.
was 199.
199.
Shelley, for the year though, we're well under, even our projecting our next one in September, we're
The one
gonna
in
be.
September on the budget was budgeted at 1.9. I don't think it'll come in at 1.5.
You don't think it'll come in at 1.5? My only fear here is if we're ever wrong, and it comes in at 2.1, we don't have the 5 days to act, but are we under budget before we even look at that one being $600,000? Year to date with all the projections. So we're under it, and you're predicting that you would be
Last
surprised
year's
if
gonna
it came in at 1.5. So we should finish the year significantly under the commitment that we had set. So then I think I'm fine.
So, do we need an amendment? Expect motion for no action on that. No action. You wanna make that? Should we make sure it's not?
I'll make a motion that we're not taking action.
No action.
I'll second it.
And second, change your, any other discussion? All in favor of just, further action on the IGT funding, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, consider and approve the tentative to install signage on premise in accordance with the facility and equipment lease by and between Gainesville Hospital District and Gainesville Community Hospital. This, Tom he's sick tonight and so wasn't able to make it, but he asked for this to be put on here. The big sign down here at the front of the hospital, under our agreement, any signage, I have the agreement here, that has to be approved by this board if they're gonna make big changes to anything, including signages. Well, what he wanted to do was to put electronic signs on that sign, electronic names to kind of especially go back here to the medical office spaces to show them, so people would have some idea of what the medical office space is. But when they brought someone in to look at the sign, they found out the sign was in disrepair. So he's got to go further and look at what he needs. So he really, at this point in time, he doesn't have anything to bring to us on this. So we just need to also table this one until he comes in and brings someone in as to what they can really do with the sign that they want to do. But their ultimate goal is to advertise office spaces that are back here from the road. Okay? And so that's according to the
So who's gonna
contract. They
get
have
paid
to,
for this?
well, they would. It's a requirement for them, but we have to give approval of any major changes in that.
He's gonna come to us
If
with
we-
the price and tell us about the project and what
Yeah.
the details.
We can either approve them going ahead and doing that or tabling and waiting until they
Just
go
wait and
back.
see what he's got here.
Yeah, I make a motion we table action item number 8.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Darryl, Lisa? discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. Consider an approved vendor for removal of cleanup of property at 1501 West Highway 82. It's that little house right out here. That you had somebody that's going to do this.
We had a party interested, they pulled the plug on it, they did want to make us an offer on the property. And they would, purchase the property and tear the house down and completely remove it and go from there.
We don't want to sell the property.
Well, I'm standing what
Okay, I got you. Okay, so we're back to square
So it's no
one.
longer, no longer an option for removal.
Okay.
Do we still have an offer from
We
prior
have an
to?
offer of $4,000 to remove the building.
We pay
We pay $4,000 for them removing and cleaning up. That's the cheapest that I found out there.
Is that an action item we want to go ahead and move forward with since we got it?
But I mean, I was prepared to go on that, but you guys are looking for a free, are you prepared to do that, to get, to go ahead and remove that building out there? Think that,
I'd like it to be free too, but I'm forgetting it out of the way.
Well, I can look at a building down there for, I won't give up $4,000 for somebody to move in here and move it off, you know what I mean?
There's some liability with it sitting there too, guys, and I know we all have insurance, but there's liability, there's eyesoreness.
So, think about it.
I'd make a motion that we spend the $4,000 and be done.
A motion and a second, Shane and Emily. The motion to spend that and get it out of there. Any further discussion? All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to that, say aye. Two. Consider and approve a resolution authorizing the amendment and termination of the military second retirement plan. Talking about earlier. But Christie's got some information for us on this.
Do you want me to stand up or do you want me to
Yeah,
stay here?
you would.
Stand up, Christie.
I'll help my legs. All right, so in your packet tonight, you've got some paperwork. There are amendments and resolutions to terminate the NTMC Oregon Technical Center Supplemental Plan and the NTMC 457 Deferred Compensation Plan. So collectively, both of those are known as our retirement program. Okay, so your supplemental plan was the portion that the employer paid contributions to. Your 457 deferred plan was where the portion where employees made contributions to. So together they made up our retirement program. These amendments will effectively make our termination on September 3rd, 2019, and include the provisions to make that also our year end date. So that way we can do our audit work and get that out of the way, okay? Participants do need a 30-day notice of any termination plan. So that notice will go out from Milliman. They will send them out by August 1st. Okay, if y'all approve this tonight. So participants will have 3 options for their current funds that are in their retirement plan. One, they can roll over all of it or part of it to another IRA or another employee-sponsored benefit plan. 2, they can take a lump sum distribution of their account balance and pay any of the taxes associated with that withdrawal. Number 3 is they can take no action. And so if they take no action, there is a amendment line that allows for mandatory distributions in excess of $1,000 without the participant's written consent. And so that's a rollover provision. And that means that they will automatically have their plan rolled over to a Schwab IRA. So if they take no action, we'll automatically move it over. If it's less than $1,000, they will actually receive a payout distribution, and they will be subject to the associated tax requirements. Okay, that is all that. For forfeitures, we had forfeitures in the past. So if employees terminated and they didn't do any of the requirements, they could forfeit money. If you had plans that had already been paid in and someone passed away, there would be funds that would be allocated back to the district, but their payout would only be so much. So we call those forfeitures. For the last fourth quarter 2018 and your first quarter 2019, those excess funds that we had
paid your invoices. So that's the reason why you've not seen any invoices for the last 2 quarters, is because it came out of that forfeiture account. That account is now zero. So that's the reason we're bringing it to y'all to make the determination on how y'all like to continue with this plan. So y'all can continue with the employees sitting their funds in Milliman, and y'all pay the quarterly amounts. But the employees cannot deposit funds. Y'all are no longer depositing funds because they're no longer your employees. So y'all can continue leaving it in the account, or we can terminate the plan, which would get rid of you having the cost of the maintenance fees for Milliman.
Is that the plan that we've already terminated a couple of years ago?
No, that's the pension plan. So you had 2 retirement accounts. You had a pension plan for the employees, and you had the supplemental retirement plan. Okay? So your monthly or your quarterly cost is about $5,400 for your management fees. And then if we terminate, that will put us through second and third quarter that you'll need to pay those fees for. That gives them time to do the due responsibilities and close out the plans. Then you will need your final year audit. And that one they could not give me a quote on just yet, but I figured it's probably going to be in the exact same range of about $5,400 to $5,800 to do that final audit for your tax purposes. As of June 30th, 2019, you have 114 plan participants. So that's how many employees are still left with the Milliman retirement plan. Your balance of the plan was $6,368,762. So in the last quarter, you paid out about 1.7 to beneficiaries that had retired already. So is there any other questions I can possibly answer? I mean, the terms in there, trying to think of everything you would ask.
Are we ever gonna get rid of you employees?
Well, this,
Sure, if you want to, you can say the word.
Thank you, Jim.
Hey, so what you're recommending us to do is terminate it?
I'm recommending that y'all term and that y'all get rid of the expense of,
So, how much do we owe on fees now?
right now, nothing, because your quarter has not come up yet, but if you keep this, you're gonna continue to have it quarterly at $5,400. So for us to get it terminated, it will take us 2 quarters. So you are gonna have the expense of $5,400 for the next 2 quarters.
And you have to do a final $5,500.
And then we have to do a final $5,500, right? So on average, probably $5,400 to $5,800 for that cost. But that's to term it compared to keep doing $40,000 a year to keep this plan going for the employees.
It's been going on, it's so like Obamacare, if you like your retirement, you can keep it.
yeah. So, you want to present a motion?
I will. I make a motion that we terminate the forfeit 7 retirement plan.
I'll second.
Discussion on that? All in favor of terminating that, that retirement forfeit 7 retirement plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Let's, we're going right into our budget workshop.
Okay, everybody have their worksheets?
Yeah, let's take a brief recess.
Yeah, let's take about a 5-minute break or so, and we can excuse those that don't want to stay around here. Thank you all for coming. You okay? Board members have to stay.
$625,000 quarterly, and then at the end of 12 months, we settle for 50% of everything over a bottom line of $2.5 million. So that's what we're estimating. We're estimating that will be $185,000 owed to the district after the $2.5 million, based on our budget. And then on the deferred tax revenue, that assumption, this is based on what you did last year. So that's assuming that the tax rate stays the same and that the appraisal dollar value of property tax is the same. So we just threw it in there so you could see what it looks like. So you could have that information to make decisions around.
Property values are way up.
Correct, and I just got the finalization appraisal reports, and so once I take that information, then I will help set y'all, do y'all the options like we did last year for your tax
They're way
rates.
up at their probably a year later getting on the books, but valuations are way up.
And then the next line is other revenue, and that's the hospital rent, and I believe it indexes and goes up, and so we put that estimate of the change in there. So it'll go up to $51,000 on the anniversary date of the first one. The other revenue is the Kiowa rent, so Lake Kiowa, if you decide to sell that, that's gonna have to come out. I've done a second page, I think, in your book, that kind of pulls out all the expenses related to Kiowa, Lake Kiowa, that also, so you have the rental income, and then you have all the expenses associated with the building. So on the second page, you can see that property, it looks like contributes about $35,000 annually based on nothing extraordinary from a repair and maintenance standpoint. Just based on what we totally run, I'm sorry,
Gross 35,000.
yes, after the expenses are paid.
So it's almost a net.
Yeah, no, okay, yes, sir. Okay, and then, the next line is your interest on your bonds. We accrue it every month, and at the end of the year, that's what it would be over this 12-month period. Indigent care is the money that you IGT on behalf of the state, based on our budget, and what we estimate for next year, it's about $4 million. And then we have the appraisal district fees, we pay those quarterly, and then we expense them by the month.
Back to Jimmy, his M&O, what we just wrote M&O and then carry one line over now.
Yes. Okay, and then, sorry, keep going back and forth, let's see. Contract labor is the board meeting and accounting. One of the things that we are proposing is that we put you guys on a different accounting software system, and it'd be about $1,200 a year. Part of that's because we can only have one fiscal year on our system. So that means, and your fiscal year is different than ours, and as minimal things as you have, we're thinking that QuickBooks would be a better way to do it. And then we could set it up to produce financials out of there for you. It would take less time on our part once we set it up. So that's what we've estimated in the budget as well. We have the election expense, it's about $6,600 every May. I don't know why she broke out advertising, but I think the only advertising you do is for the election, isn't it?
Or, legal notices and if they need any type of bids.
Okay, and on the insurance, I know that line's wrong, we have $139,000, but after the corrections I was going with them earlier, let me just tell you what you currently have of insurance. You have the malpractice for the next 7 years, it's already paid, so it's not really a cash flow item, but it would be an expenditure that's already paid, and that is $1,721 a month. You have $131 a month on crime insurance, $2,200 a month for directors and officers insurance, which you would certainly need to keep, and then you have fiduciary insurance, which is $110 a month. So what you're paying right now is $42.63 a month. We know that you need to have those insurances. What we don't know is if they would renew at a higher rate. So the malpractice is locked in. That's not going to change. But the crime insurance, the fiduciary, and the D&O could possibly go up. The other line item you'll see right here is $7,500. That's what you've paid previously on all your insurances on an annual fee for a broker fee. So you go to a broker, they go out and get you bids. Pick the best pricing, and that's their fee to you. That may go down because you're no longer going to do malpractice. You're not doing property insurance and some of that the hospital now retains. So that number may be a little higher than it needs to be. And then, of course, we have the dues at Lake Kiowa for the homeowners. If you sell, that's part of what would go. The audit fees we're estimating about $11,500. I think last year you guys paid $62,000. We're estimating that because, one, there's a lot less records to go through, and we're going to manage it as well as we can. The better we do at giving them what they need, and the less questions there are. And that was part of the reason why we had them come in May and meet with us. And we'll probably get a bill on that as well. But we wanted to plan ahead, have it ready, and know that it's going to be done well. Our audit will actually be the last week of August, so we're trying to get ahead of that. And then what I would like to do as soon as we close September, schedule time to get that out and going. It shouldn't take nearly as long as it took last year. Because you have 2 months of hospital operations, which they'll already have looked at our 10, and then you'll have the little bit that you guys have every month. Okay, and then we have legal fees, and that's one of those things that we probably need some input from you. I think that's probably low what we have in here, because you said about quarterly we've been paying Kevin Reed $6,000 to $7,000. Unless that slows down, that $500 or that $6,000 is probably understated. The property taxes are for Lake Kiowa, so if you get rid of that, that's part of that. And the maintenance, most of that is for Lake Kiowa as well. So that gets you down to $8,900,000 coming in, $6,559,000 going out. So then you have an excess funds of 2,000,003. Then you have some non-cash items that actually hit your financials. Depreciation is gonna continue. And then we had a amount of refinancing cost on the refunding. And that's one of those things, you've already paid it out, but we amortize it over the life of the bonds. Now, what I'm thinking is when you guys get done and we come up with what the budget is and what you make some decisions. So some of the questions, so there's a couple of things I wanted to tell you. One, your bond payment in August is 9.8 for principal. And in the following August, it goes to 1.4. But through the life of the bonds, it looks like 3.625 within 5,000 is about what you're going to pay every year, which is how the INS is set up right now to fund that. But I just want to put it out there because when I do financials, I'm always looking at what the cash flow is and what you got to have money to pay. And so I just wanted to point that out. What I put down here is what the IGTs have been. Even though they're up here, I put them as an estimate of a 112. You really should be on an accrual basis, but because we don't really know what those are going to be and didn't when we started this, it's been booked just as it was paid out. Then if you go down to the next page, these are just some questions to ask yourself. On the MOB, you guys lost a tenant, so the rent has gone down. If you're going to keep the building, do we anticipate putting a tenant back in there? When do we think that would happen? You've lost $18.25 a month. I think they moved out in July, if I'm not mistaken. If you do decide to sell Lake Iowa, is there going to be additional costs that we're going to incur, and would that be done before the end of the year? There may be title insurance, closing costs, attorney's fees, and stuff like that may be related to that. And then any thoughts on your legal fees as far as what you anticipate they might be? This here just kind of goes through the detail of what's in the budget for just Lake Iowa. So if we take that out, that would change everything as well. So we know we need to fix the insurance to something less. I would round it to about $4,500. I said it's about $43 a month. But if you have any price increases on any of those policies, then you would have room for it. Any thoughts, feedback,
Well, I guess you'll
questions?
have an answer tonight on your college.
Yeah, well, that's what I asked for. What number is that? Yeah.
16.
Yeah, looks like we could do that saving.
So just to give y'all a heads up, my application for all the new plans are due July 31st to give to health. I already forgot the last part. HealthSure, thank you. And so once I get those turned in, our policy does term September 13th for our current. So that kind of puts us in a little bit of predicament of having possibly a special called meeting to approve the new plans because we don't meet again until September 23rd for an actual board meeting. So we've got some budget and tax, but not. So they have to meet in August to approve that item.
Y'all are not supposed to do that, are you? Meeting in August? Probably do.
I probably won't be golfing at that time.
I don't think Ken can say the same. I don't think Ken can say the same.
You know, we could, if we have to, is that the one we were talking about? We could, don't necessarily have to do it at 6 o'clock. We could rather do it at a different time of the day.
Yeah, probably wouldn't take
6
us.
works the best for me unless you wanna make it later.
I mean, 6 is fine.
9 o'clock would be better for me in July.
It's a Monday.
Sunday.
That's the Monday. It's 20, it would be the 20, what did I say? 26th of August.
I'll be the president, whenever they said no sign, but on the door.
You won't be here yet?
That's 2 out.
Oh, no, excuse me, I will be here, I apologize.
Okay. So, and 6 is, this time is better, just as good or better for football. Okay.
Still like
I don't need it.
They got glow balls, but I'm not gonna chase them in the dark.
Okay, well, we can, if we need to do that, it's what.
So 26th and 6th.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna make a decision later on here that can change all this, but this is kind of a workshop, do you see anything that you would like to see differently on a particular budget? That's so little, we need budgets now, so, but it's,
Where do we get the lawn service from?
I'm sorry?
Where do we get the lawn service from? Is that Calvin?
We pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we provide it and charge you for the time. It's
Yeah,
about
okay.
$50 a month.
So a lot of that's going away, so.
That's not what all this is. So I think that $50 is sitting in this line.
That is, all of that is Calvin.
It is. And that's all built in the top, so it will come out in. So if you guys tell me what you want different, I could adjust anything. We probably need to make a decision on the legal, what you want to put in there for that.
Well, I don't know, you got 6,000 in there, even though I suspect that should really go down to less amount that's meeting only every other month. And we do want to include our attorneys every time we do meet. We're gonna have them on the phone here again, but I don't know as though that's too inflated at that either, so I don't think so.
I just know the last two bills I've seen have been 6,000 to 7,000,
Well,
but that was when there was a lot going on.
Yeah, we're still doing a lot of stuff, based on the lease and all that. And, there's a lot of information that's asked for that has to go before our attorneys that hopefully should stop.
Do you know, Pam, what it usually costs us to have income?
$1,200 was the average, but that was them coming, so calling in, I haven't seen the bill, because we've done the last one, so it won't be till next month for the call-in.
Maybe we can
1,200
get
was
it
There'd
the
be
back.
no travel time, so it'd probably be half as much.
Probably half as much.
If you think about it, so if it was running 12, then 6 would probably mean it's every other month, so that still may cover you. If I was gonna do anything, I would put it to 1,000 a month, but I would not. I mean, it doesn't sound like it would go over that.
What's $1,000 towards that?
Right now, it's at 500.
Yeah, well, we certainly could do, there's no reason why you couldn't do that, Shelley, and strive for.
Well, I just thought if something happened,
Probably
it came
better
up,
to
it
be-
would probably
better to
cover
be
you,
up
so
there.
move that to 12.
What do you guys
Okay.
think? 1,000 a month would be better? Well, we seem,
Good, I have to get a
lawyers,
local
good or
attorney.
bad, they charge lots of money. Except present companies, except.
We're not gonna wait a couple months on his bill if he wants to get 30. Up front.
Okay. Pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
So we're gonna bump that up.
Pardon?
We're gonna bump that up. Legal fees.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can bump that up.
To 12,000.
And we'll get you a Kyle answer short.
Okay.
Then I wanna go over, in the first part of is the budget and tax calendar. Just gonna give you all an idea, tonight we're doing our budget workshop. I did get the
Travel
appraisal. Yeah, travel up. I did get the appraisal roll notification today, so now I can take that and start doing the calculation based on what your bond payment requirement is for the next year and how much, we would need for our percentage to be for the tax rate, okay? So I'll start working on that. I have the 2 hearings set for possibly September 9th and 13th and the 16th and the 20th. So I've gotten a couple of responses from a couple board members on days that were good or not. So if the rest of y'all will finish looking at your calendar and get me back some dates, so that way I can make sure we have quorum and y'all can be there for the hearing. Then on, huh?
Or during the day.
Possibly during the day. Yeah. And we could do both. It's just gonna depend on what's open.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I know, not between 9 and 12, you got it. But,
I did see September 2nd, that's a holiday.
September 2nd, that's just me submitting a notice.
I see, so I'm sorry, I
Yes.
didn't.
Yeah, not everybody gets a holiday off. The 23rd is when we will do our adoption of both the tax rate and the budget. So we'll have our budget hearing. It'll be the item after our public comment. We'll have the budget hearing, allow people to make any comments on the hearing, and then we will adopt both later on in the meeting as an action item. So if y'all have any questions on the calendar, that's what I plan to go with.
I'll go pretty quick if nobody's gonna be here to protest.
Yeah, he gets changed.
Yeah. Okay. you're gonna also talk about the banking and accounting stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, me and Shelley may tag team this. So, Jolene, Shelley, and I met to go over, the possible banking and accounting needs for the district. We reviewed, possible RFPs, items that we would be looking for. So y'all had 7 accounts, y'all gave approval to terminate 3 of the accounts. Those funds were, transferred into the operating. So now you have your capital expenditure account, which is your roof. So we've got those funds still in there. So the roof's not complete. Again, we're still waiting for minor fixes and send the final invoice. Then you've got your operating account, your maintenance and operating, and then your interest and sinking account. So your 2 other restricted accounts. Products that we were looking at, what type of banking services do y'all need? View images of checks. So those are the kind of things we're going to have to ask the bank, do you provide when we send out for the bid? And then wire transfers, online banking. So those are type of things that we're looking at, so we can send out to banks to ask, what do you provide, and what do you charge? So that's good for y'all to bring back and make a final determination on which banking.
And Chris, did they want to ask, how much can they earn on the money they got in there?
Correct. Yes, because right now y'all do earn money on the money that you, on the accounts that you have, or with the people that you have, you earn money. So QuickBooks, as Shelley mentioned, is the program that we're looking at to try to go with for your accounting needs. Right now, the basic quote that I was able to pull offline was $60 to $150 a month. So I submitted what, again, y'all are looking for and trying to maintain your accounting services, and I'm waiting to get back a final quote. Plus, we want to know how many can it do pre-printed checks off of their system, how many users, can it have multiple users, is there any special things that it can do? Will it connect with other banks if that's a possibility, to merge the 2 accounts together? So those are things we're asking for.
And Christie, I'd recommend that we don't get a capital expenditures account, because you're probably not gonna need it going forward, but we just hold on to this account until we get that final roof payment,
Right.
and then close that account into your general operating after that.
Right. So I told y'all we would try to bring y'all an RFP by this month. 2 reasons why that didn't happen is, 1, the roof's not completed, so that account's not closed out. That's one that we still need to close out. We can't go to bid for a roof account because we don't need the capital expenditure account. The second thing is we still have some AR that is coming in. So that was one of my big concerns last time, was having AR come in. If we were to move bank accounts, that means I'd have to notify all those payers that the money needs to go to a different bank account, and that would just be, it could be potential loss for the community, which means, so loss of funds. Right, so that's, as soon as these 2 things are done, then I'll be right on it, because I've got your approval to go out and submit the bid. I just wanted to keep y'all up to date on where we are on the status.
Thank you.
Okay.
Remember that we talked about the IRS audit that we had. You got my information.
I do, so yay, good news. All right, so we were submitted an IRS request. They were going to do an audit on our Series 2007 bonds, and we gave them all the information that they requested, and we received a letter that states, based on our audit, the debt issuance named above, we decided to close the examination with no change to the position that interest paid to beneficial owners of the bonds is excludable from gross income. So meaning that they were looking at, did we need to pay taxes on those bonds? And based on their conclusion, we do not, so the audit is closed.
Glad we got it tonight.
Got it right.
Yes.
IRS.
Save it, frame
Save
that.
Yes.
Yeah, you get something like that, you better frame that something.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to again remind you, Shelley's also mentioned, you've got your semi-annual bond payment coming up. And so that was in the budget. It will come out of this year's taxes, and then again, we'll give y'all the next year's tax payments in our tax proposal. That's it on that.
And we don't have, that would be it for discussion, we don't have the hospital, I mean, because you weren't there, were you? So there was, and Jeff's gone now, so not a meeting from them. So we will dispense with the open session and go into closed session, okay? We'll give you about 4 minutes to do that. Approve authorizing sale of real property at 100 Kyle Drive West, Lake Highway, Texas, 76240, and approve resolution to authorize for and on behalf of Gainesville Hospital District to execute agreement, additional instruments, paper, and documents appropriate for sale of real property. We have two bids, and we need to read them.
Read the resolution? Alright. Whereas Gainesville Hospital District owns a tract of real property located in Cook County, Texas. Whereas pursuant to Texas Local Government Code 272.001, the district desires to sell the property and accept a sealed bid for the purchase of the property. Whereas a legal notice which referred to the seller property was printed in a newspaper of general circulation on 2 separate dates. Whereas, depending on who y'all choose to accept the sealed bid, desires to purchase the property and submit a sealed bid for the purchase of the property. Whereas the district evaluated all bids received. The district accepted buyer's bid and has authorized the negotiation and execution of real estate purchase agreement in accordance with the bid, with buyer as a successful bidder. The district is authorized under Texas Local Government Code 272.001 to sell the property to buyer upon authorization of the district's board of directors. Whereas the board of directors of the district has determined that it is the best interest of the district to sell the property to buyer, approve the negotiation and execution of the real estate contract and any ancillary documents related to, and to execute, deliver, and perform its obligations under the real estate contract and such ancillary documents that are in the terms of the documents satisfactory to the board of directors. Now therefore it be resolved that the board of directors of the district hereby adopt the following resolutions. The board of directors has accepted buyer's bid for the purchase of the property described as below, 100 Kiowa Drive West, Lake Kiowa. Property consists of approximately 1.121 acres or 50,621 square foot of multi-tenant office building, having approximately 6,022 square feet of gross building and net rentable area. The board of directors authorizes Andrew Anderson, president of the board, and Shane Lee, vice president of the board, to finalize and execute all agreements, instruments, including the real estate purchase contract, and take any and all actions necessary and are advisable to complete the sale of the property to buyer as contemplated in the real estate contract, and to give effective to the transactions contemplated by and provided for in the real estate contract.
Are we needing to adopt that as a resolution?
Yes.
Or what I would like to do is put it in a motion that we sell it and put the money in the interest and sinking account where it goes straight to the taxpayers and it stays there in a restricted account. Where it can't be spent on nothing but bonds.
And just to clarify, this is the attorney coming out, but it's Andrew Anderson or Shane Lee, it's not and.
Or.
So either one can
Either one.
sign the paper.
Okay, we have, say we have two bids, thank you.
Want to read the bids?
We've had a chance to discuss them, but we've got, so draft a bid submitted by Don Wood, President, CEO of Muskogee. Bid was a purchase bid of $405,000 cash. And we have the sale of tracks bid by William R. Hamilton, Grand Avenue, Texas, for the purchase price of $415,000. $415,000. The William R. Hamilton is the high bidder on that. Do I hear a motion?
Motion that we accept the idea of $415,000 from 88 Land and Cattle LLC.
But it be William R. Oh, he's got it here. I got you. Okay. 88 Land and Cattle LLC.
I'd like to add to that motion that money gets put in the interest and sinking account.
So, I hear you, Jimmy. I personally, well, I don't know if we're open for discussion, but
Hey, if it goes anywhere else, it's gonna get spent, and to me, it needs to go on bonds. That's money the taxpayers have dug up a lot of money, and that ought to go back in their hat.
So who's got the motion?
I make a motion.
What was your motion?
We accept the $415,000 from 88 Cattle, Land and Cattle, LLC. That was my motion.
That's your motion, and the second.
That's the way it's written on there.
I'll second it.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Got discussion by Jimmy, any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Okay, all right. We can, as far as your, you know, you don't, not a motion, we don't have it on the agenda, but, you know, if we've got, we can't pay back these bonds for 10 years. And, you know, to put something that's been restricted for 10 years that we can't use it, you know, at the same time, you know, would we lower taxes for 1 year?
The day will come, you wanna raise them rates, and the money will be there. So, and really, well, I gotta figure, you done had a motion on the floor, I made the motion.
No, he made the motion. You can't act on one when you already got one motion.
I made the motion before.
You didn't make it.
Well, he made a motion that we.
If we wanna do that, Jimmy, that needs to be on the agenda next time. and
Put it
we
on
can
the
assign it.
agenda
There
next
you
time,
go.
that's
There you
fine.
go. There you go.
Yeah, put it on the agenda next time.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, let's just dispose of the property right now.
Right.
Okay. So,
Another motion for the resolution.
oh, and then a motion for that resolution, the board of directors, the resolution that was read, the motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Emily make the motion for the resolution, for the resolution. And second? Second, Ken. We have discussion on that resolution, all in favor of approval of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay, so we can get that taken care of. And I think the only other one is to, do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
You make the motion, do I have a second? No second to adjourn?
Brendan.
Brenda did.
Brenda.
She's ready to go.
All in favor, say aye. Go. All right, thank you, guys.
We'll put this in there.